Hello and welcome to Good or Bad, and Happy Halloween. My God, was I happy when they announced this movie. Going back to the original version of Michael Myers and once more ditching the sequels. That's right, much like Halloween H2O did, they retconned the sequels and made this the direct sequel to the original 1978 slasher. And because of that, I can't help but compare it to H2O, because they are essentially the same idea. Well, not essentially the same, they are. H2O was 20 years after the first movie, so they retcon all the sequels but Halloween 2, and make H2O serve as Halloween 3. And let me tell you, it's more of a Halloween 3 than Halloween 3 actually was, but we'll get to that next year. This movie, however, was 40 years after the original, and gets rid of everything including Halloween 2, making this the new Halloween 2. So it's the third movie functioning as Halloween 2, while also being the third movie called Halloween, and as well as that it's the second Halloween H2O.
Perfectly not confusing.
Ha! I just used a clip of Paul Rudd from Endgame, who was in Halloween 6. And the line from Endgame makes sense in this video! I have that nailed down on both fronts. I'm so clever. But back to Halloween. At least the new timeline isn't confusing though. We have Halloween, then Halloween. But not for long, as they have announced two more movies, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Firstly, I'd like to say Halloween Kills is a stupid name, and I hope they change it. Ends is okay, certainly better than Kills, but it could still probably be better. Let's just hope the movies are better than their names. But enough of the future, let's talk about Halloween. And first up, John Carpenter returned to the world of Michael Myers for this movie to help write the script, while David Gordon Green directed the movie. And naturally, John Carpenter also contributed to the soundtrack for the film. And it was good! Much like all of the Halloween films actually, none of them really have bad soundtracks, except maybe 6. God's sake, 6. Why do you continue to exist? I am also happy to say that the cast in this film is good. We have Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer playing her daughter Karen, and Andy Matichak as Laurie's granddaughter Allison. And Nick Castle returning all the way from the original movie for one scene as Michael Myers. The rest of the time, Michael is played by James Jude Courtney. Also, they credit them as the Shape, like the original did, which is nice. Also, we get to hear Loomis's voice on a tape recorder, or rather a damn good impression by Colin Mahan.
Dr. Samuel Loomis, January 22nd, 1979. Do you wish to give a statement regarding your former patient, Michael Myers?
My suggestion is termination. It needs to die. It needs to die.
Beats the hell out of the Loomis impression from H2O. So what's been happening over the last 40 years for everyone? Well, the movie explains that Michael got caught just after he disappeared at the end of the original movie, and he has been quietly locked away in Smith's Grove Sanitarium, but he is about to be moved. Which is when two investigative journalists decide to pay him a visit. They want to uncover the truth behind that night all those years ago. They are played by Rhiannon Rees and Jefferson Hall. Is it humane to allow random journalists into your mental health hospital to essentially antagonize your patients? Because that's pretty much what this scene is.
Say something, Michael. Say something!
And what sort of doctor would allow that? And the answer to that is Dr. Certeyn, of course. He is played by Haluk Bilginer.
Oh, you're the new Loomis.
But with a twist. He's fucking nuts. But more on that later. Although, that would explain why he would allow the inmates to be unsettled by the journalists. And I still don't think it makes that much sense that all the inmates would react like this to Michael's mask, considering they are all stood right next to Michael and they're fine with that. I guess it's like what Christian Bale said in Batman Begins.
As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
Now that would be a cool crossover. But yeah, aside from it being a little maddening, it is a cool intro.
Say something!
So, moving on, Laurie, what's she been up to?
I'm twice divorced, and I'm a basket case.
Well, to be fair, what could you expect? I especially like this because it tells us that she tried moving on. Hell, she does have a family, but she never quite could escape the grip of that night. So she has regressed into a paranoid woman living alone. The movie leans heavily into the toll it's taken on Laurie, and indeed her family as well. Karen, her daughter, throughout the movie, tells us of her upbringing, that she was forced to learn how to fire a gun at a young age, that she had nightmares about the basement because of all the work her mother insisted must be done. Then Child Protective Services took her away from Laurie at age 12. And the good thing is that the movie explains this to us at various points throughout the film in very natural ways, so none of it feels like forced exposition. The only line that really feels shoved in there is the one about Michael and Laurie being related. For many movies now, they have been siblings, but this movie makes it so that it was just a rumour someone made up. It doesn't stick out like a bad CGI mask or anything, but it does feel like it was there just to address the elephant in the room. Because clearly they didn't want another hunt your family down movie. But they couldn't not address it either because it's such a well-established fact throughout many of the movies. Even though the original Halloween never stated that they were related, it was Halloween 2 that introduced that. So being a direct sequel to the movie that never said they were related, they could have moved on without that line. But we would have inevitably asked that question, so I can see why they felt the need to address it.
Wasn't it her brother who, like, cold-blooded mutilated all those teenagers?
No. That's just a bit that some people made up to make him feel better, I think.
It's a small thing, but the line does bug me a little. But it also reintroduces us to a question I had with the first movie. Why Laurie? Why go after her to begin with? Did they just want to add in the mystery that the first movie had? And to be honest, they do make Michael more mysterious than he has been in a lot of the other sequels. In fact, they add in so much mystery that Michael has no clear goal in this movie, because all he really does is kill people. Like, there's a lot of random people that are only in the film to up the body count. There are some really cool death scenes, don't get me wrong, they are really, really good, and they show off some great cinematography, but they don't serve a story. Speaking of the story, what is it? It starts off by giving us the impression that it's about understanding Michael. There are 3 characters in this movie with that goal. The 2 investigative journalists and Dr. Certeyn. And this honestly amounts to nothing. The 2 journalists died pretty soon after Michael escapes, and I feel like they were only in the movie to give us a plausible reason why he got his mask back. Because it's not like he would have broken into an archived evidence lockup, is it? Also, you kinda have to smirk at the convenience that there's a mechanic wearing overalls right at the same place the 2 journalists stop off at. So yeah, Michael escaped during his transfer to another institute, and he kills a child in the process, which is just new for Michael actually. I mean, he has tried to kill children in the past, but never quite managed to. So I'm guessing they just wanted this movie to be darker than the original. which is why they upped the body count and also had him murder a child. Does it add to the story? No, but it does make it darker. To be fair though, all of these random killings can still serve a purpose. They are telling us where Michael is mentally, and I think that he is just angry and tired of waiting. I mean, think about it. He originally spent 15 years locked up in Smith's Grove. He then broke out and picked a random target for whatever reason, but he picked her. That's what matters. And he methodically killed her friends and set up a final kill where he would finish her off, but he was stopped and caught. Then he spends another 40 years locked away in Smith's Grove, thinking about how his plan failed, which could have led him to blind rage, to the point that when he gets out, he just kills and kills and kills. Now, the other person that's trying to understand Michael is Dr. Certeyn, and earlier I said he was nuts. Well, he bloody is. The movie builds him up as the new Loomis, just like Laurie said he is. But, unlike Loomis, Certeyn doesn't want to kill Michael, he wants him back alive. And when Officer Hawkins, played by Will Patton, tries to kill Michael, a twisty thing happens. Certeyn kills him! And then later Michael kills Certeyn, and that's the end of that story. Seriously, what the hell was that for? Did they only add that in to distract us from the fact that this movie isn't actually doing anything new? And by the way, I'm fine with that. After the Rob Zombie movies, I am perfectly fine with just a bog standard Halloween movie. But putting a storyline in the movie where you're trying to discover how Michael thinks and make him talk to you, and then you make it amount to nothing, that's just disappointing. Either go all out with it, or don't do it. You cannot do that kind of thing in half measures. Hell, it's not even half, it's more like 25% of the movie, and that's being generous. So it's more like an almost a quarter measure. And this saddens me because I remember making a similar complaint about Rob Zombie's Halloween movie. That being said, this one does have much better things in the movie to counter that negative, so that's a silver lining. So I have already said that Michael has no real obsession in this movie beyond just killing people. So how does he have that final confrontation with Laurie and the rest of her family? Well, I say final, but sequels. Well, Allison, who is out being a teenager, bumps into Michael, who is out being, well, a serial killer. I don't think he was looking for her or anything, he just happened to be in the area, which is when Hawkins and Certeyn come to rescue her. And then we get the scene where Certeyn goes crazy. Now, before Certeyn gets killed off, he says that Michael must face Laurie again. So he actually drives him, while he is unconscious, to Laurie's house, which is where the rest of them are held up with police protection. Hang on. If they have police protection, why aren't they at a police station? Maybe they watched Halloween 4 and thought it was a bad idea. But back on track. The big final confrontation between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode happens only because Michael got a lift. It took someone driving him to Laurie's house to make him try and kill her again. And you know what's funny about that? So many movies have tried to explain what drives Michael to kill, and it turns out the answer is a driver. How is that not just fucking hilarious and a little bit pathetic? Also, earlier in the movie, Laurie and Michael saw each other and Michael didn't react, which makes me wonder, does he even remember her at all? Has the obsession died over the last 40 years? Which I will admit, that does have some nice symmetry to it. Michael is no longer obsessed with Laurie, but Laurie has become obsessed with Michael. One of them has moved on to killing other people, while the other one needs to kill Michael in order to move on herself. I kind of do like that, but I don't like that Certeyn had to drive Michael to Laurie's house. They could have cut that entirely and just had Laurie hunting Michael while Michael was doing his thing. Then in turn, Michael would have to try and kill Laurie to stop her from killing him. That, I think, would have worked better. But it all boils down to a big old fight in Laurie's survivalist house. How would that have still happened if Laurie had been out on the hunt? I'm glad you asked. Laurie would have thought that she killed Michael. But then, when Laurie goes home to get her family, which is where she left them to keep them safe, Michael follows, and thus we are back on track for the rest of the movie. I genuinely think that would have worked far better than someone driving Michael to Laurie. Plus then they could have gotten rid of the Certeyn bollocks and played up the much better theme of the obsession being shifted and the hunter becoming the hunted. Now I do feel the need to point out that because I'm bitching a lot about Dr. Certeyn, I want to say that I do like him. He's a good stand-in for Loomis, I just don't like where they went with his character. So yeah, that big old fight at the end of the film. How was that? It's quite good, honestly. Yeah, that's my entire analysis of the climax of the movie. It's quite good. No, obviously I'm joking, I am going to say more than that. And first up is that we get a really nice little nod to the first movie, and some really good scenes where Laurie is searching the house for Michael. So it all ends with Michael being trapped and having the house burnt down around him, although we never actually see him burn. And considering 2 more movies have been announced, you can definitely say that he managed to get out of there. Although, would it really have made a difference if we did see him burn? I mean, come on, it's Halloween. I mean, we already saw that once, and he came back. Technically twice. He came back in Halloween 4, and then he came back in H2O. Also, he burnt to death at the end of Halloween Resurrection, and then minutes later came back. But that was Halloween Resurrection, so yeah. So yeah, it was a pretty good ending. But with this being the second time we see Laurie go on the offensive against Michael, and no, it isn't the third time, Resurrection doesn't count, it just doesn't. How does it compare to her fight against Michael in H2O? I think that while both are damn good, especially how relentless Laurie was in H2O, the new movie does it better. Don't get me wrong, H2O looked more epic. You could see the determination in her eyes much more effectively in that movie. Not that it wasn't present in this one, it just looked better in H2O. This, however, is a better slasher movie fight. And that is quite simply because it has suspense. And this comes from 2 places. Laurie searching the house, and hearing Michael search the house, while they take refuge in the basement. / panic room / trap. And while I cannot begrudge a good old epic scene like the one in H2O, this is a slasher movie, and it fit the tone better. But seriously, that bit in H2O where Laurie has the axe is just awesome! So, I have barely mentioned Allison in this video, which is because even though she is easily our second main character alongside Laurie, her contribution to this movie is less memorable than Laurie's. And ironically, the reason for this is because she is Laurie. Or rather, what Laurie was to the first movie. She is the nice, relatable and innocent girl that gets caught up in all of these horrible things. So her role in this movie, until the shit hit the fan, was to be a normal teenager. To have a shitty boyfriend. To have friends. To go to parties. To live her life until Michael gets to her. And that's fine. That's what this movie needs. But it pales in comparison to watching Laurie's obsession. Therefore, while it's effective in the movie, there is less to talk about when it comes to her character. But she did stab Michael in the hand, so that definitely helped. Before I wrap this up, because I've been rabbiting on for quite a while now, there are a few more things I want to say. Firstly, I've noticed I've said firstly a lot in this video. Secondly, formerly firstly, the intro titles were a very nice touch. They were very nostalgic. And secondly, or thirdly, whichever one you want, there are a few scenes in this film that are just unusual. I guess they are to break the tension, but I can't help shake them whenever I watch this. There's the scene with the kid that dies, and before he does so, he tells his dad he doesn't want to go hunting and he would rather go dancing.
Is dance class that important to you?
Yeah, it is.
Get some more time in the woods, go hunting, fishing?
On weekends, I'll do it with you, Dad. Like, I really love spending time with you, but right now, dancing is my thing, you know, and it really hits me in the heart.
Damn! Just let the kid go dancing! I mean, you'd both be alive now if you did. Another one is at the end of the movie. Just before Michael attacks the house, we see two cops who are watching the house discussing snacks and sandwiches. Neither of these scenes are bad or anything, it's just really weird that I get so invested with this guy's sandwich story.
On me is essentially just the Vietnamese version of a French baguette. Your partner, the greatest partner in the world, made an arrangement with the Vietnamese folks at the restaurant and had them make you your very own peanut butter and jelly banh mi sandwich.
What else can you say? Sandwiches. Also, holy bloody Jesus, Michael, isn't that a bit much? I know you broke a kid's neck earlier, but bloody hell, all he wanted was his partner to try a Vietnamese sandwich, you monster! Right, well, I think that about says it all, really. There are ups and downs with this movie, but overall I do think that the good shines through the bad. Also, I'd just like to address something. Last year I did not a review for this movie, but more of a reaction video. And I seem to remember saying something along the lines of, this movie is just as good as the original, if not better. But looking back on it, that was just hype talking. This movie isn't as good as the original. It's pretty good, but not as good as the original. But that's hype for you. I just hope that Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends are just as good as this one. You have been watching Good or Bad, and I'll see you next time.